Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another Real Estate America's Newsroom. You're here, you're cool, you made it. Congratulations. It's the 7th month, the 26th day, and the year of our Lord, 2022. Stick around. Action-packed show as always. Amazing co-host behind the scenes. But before I get moving forward, let's go ahead and listen in with one of our sponsors here real quick. Freedom Move USA is our sponsor of the day. If you're planning on making a move, think you're going to make a move, know somebody who's making a move, and your real estate agent is not certified by Freedom Move USA, chances are you're going to go ahead and pay for it. Save $10,000 to $25,000 on your next move by going to Freedom Move USA and finding your certified agent. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Check out Freedom Move USA. Phoenix tops the charts, ladies and gentlemen, and homes hitting the market for sale. Quite interesting. I heard they're having some water issues down there as well. So how the Fed's fight against inflation is now hitting the housing market as we speak. As you're watching this, Mr. Jerome Powell is there at the Roundtable with all of his knights talking about what we are going to see possibly as soon as tomorrow in another inflation hedge and rate hike. Redfin CEO finally says we are in for a bumpy landing, and that's quite interesting. We all saw their stock drop fast, almost 10 points last week when somebody mentioned something to the news. A whole bunch of people lost faith in that stock. We're going to tune in with Mr. Captain Kirk Jaffe on mortgage news, and we also have America's favorite appraiser back in the house, Mr. Mark Buhler. But before I get moving forward, I'm going to introduce today's esteemed and illustrious co-host, and it is the one and only Mr. Captain Kirk Jaffe. How are you today, sir?
Doing great, Jake. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Do we have Tony Barbarino back? Is he back in the green room?
We do. Yeah, he's back from his road trip. We got Mark back. The whole crew is here.
I heard some of the chatter in the pre-show, and Tony's definitely back and fired up. We're going to tune in there. So he was even talking about his Prius, I think. So
re-energized. He is ready to go. Plugged in, charged up, and ready to go.
Totally re-energized. I wonder if he brought his friend back. Yeah, it's happening. Okay. Stick around, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to not want to miss that. Kirk, so Phoenix is topping the charts as far as homes getting listed. It's quite interesting. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, a lot of people moving around. I think this recession is coming up on us. It'll be a little while before they announce it officially. We'll get into that later. But a lot of people making a lot of moves, trying to create stability, sounds like.
Yeah, I think it's one of those sellers we're thinking about selling, and maybe it's the top of the market down there in Phoenix, and I think we're going to see some more of that. The Fed's fight against inflation. We have a little bit of a larger clip, but I think it's very relevant. I believe CNBC went ahead and put it on. It's about 5 to 6 minutes. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to want to stick around for this. We'll talk about the Fed because they're meeting right now. So, what do you think they're going to do? What's your magic 8-ball saying, Captain Kirk? What, 75?
They had a little bit of a leak there, so I think they might be locked into that 75 basis points. Although I think they might have preferred to go 100.
I thought, remember about a month ago, I said they're going to go for a full point.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, they got to get ahead of it. They're trying to get ahead of it.
We'll see. We'll see what Jerome Powell has to say. But good deal. Let's go ahead and kick right into it. Let's go ahead and find out what's going on in Phoenix, ladies and gentlemen. Here's a news clip for you from the Phoenix area, and then we're going to roundtable with everybody.
Phoenix's housing market has been changing. For months, we've been telling you about the housing shortage, that there were too few houses on the market for folks looking to buy. But could that trend be reversing? According to RE/MAX, the number of new listings in Phoenix jumped more than in any other metro area in all of America in the past year. Team 12's Michael Dowdna joined a family on the hunt for their own home in this changing market.
All over the valley, there are signs of change.
There are a lot of houses for sale in this neighborhood.
For sale signs popping up at a rate not seen since the Great Recession. And they mean options, like a chance to look around.
I really like it.
And that was something that Antoine and his wife Marie really couldn't do when they moved to the valley last year.
Thing was going so quick and we had to make a decision so fast that we even visited the first house remote.
However, since then, the market has changed as interest rates went up.
Once interest rates got over 5%, that's when we started to see the very rapid increase in supply.
That's Tina Tambor, a market analyst with the Cromford Report. She says in just the last year, the number of homes on the market is up 156%.
It's so unusual that I have not seen it in my career like this, and I've been watching the market since 1993.
And the market changed so rapidly that sellers expecting bidding wars and quick sales face the reality of open houses and cooling prices.
So the ones who realize the market has shifted first are going to be the ones who win.
But for buyers like Antoine and Marie, these signs are a welcome change, a chance to breathe.
I think it's not even like a matter of price, it's more a matter of comfort, of not being stressed to rush.
Which means they have that time needed to search for the one house that can truly be home.
A great place where you feel like, I don't know, where you want to be.
Now, 2 notes here. The majority of homes for sale right now are either new construction or owned by companies like OfferPad and Open Door. Also, although we are closer than last year, our supply is around 4,000 homes short of what experts consider a balanced supply. Michael Doudna, 12 News.
Quite interesting.
I like the scary music.
Yeah, it was. It was one of those things. So we have Mr. Mark Buhler back in town. So you're having to appraise these homes and teaching appraisers all across the Southwest how to do it. It seems like it's a wild ride for you guys right now, ups and downs and all over the place.
Well, typically appraisers are living in the past. But if we go back past the middle of June, everything was awesome and groovy and prices were going up and everything was great. And then Jerry and the boys pumped up the rates and pumped the brakes on real estate. And they're sitting around the table, figuring out how to do it a little bit more. So what we're seeing now is the inventory is increasing significantly. Demand, it's not what it was. It's still there. And people are having to get real and drop prices. And, realtors are not seeing multiple offers. Everything's happening. Since that point in time, I've seen everything just mellow out to a point where it's almost normal. It's not quite normal yet, but we're getting there.
What say you on this situation, Kirk?
Well, I think you said it right there, Mark. We're getting back to normal, and that feels really strange. And a lot of people are making shifts, and the media is all over it. Like, the media loves having stories like this to talk about all the time, right?
Sure.
The world is falling, everything is terrible, people can't keep their homes, all this stuff. But I think people are just adjusting. We are going into difficult economic times. It's part of the business cycle. It's perfectly normal for this country to go through ebbs and flows of economics. And I think Tim will have something to say about positioning yourself with the right advisors so you can step through it without too much pain. It is possible. In fact, I saw a headline yesterday that wealthy people, if you will, people who work in the private banking world or clients of the private banking world are actually borrowing more than ever before. They're taking out mortgages, they're taking out business lines. And it's probably because they know that money is still cheap, even at 5 or 6%. And they're building up those cash reserves because they see opportunities coming. So what do you think, Tim? Probably an opportunity somewhere around here, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, the business-minded, wealth-minded individuals are definitely hedging themselves against a shifting market. Okay, so the way that if you do have a business, line of credit is definitely being taken, whether that's to advertise and market through a downturn, because the last man standing wins on the other side, right? So whether that means they're tightening the belt and then, using the money to get the word out about what they do or to keep staff or whatever the case may be. They're definitely preparing, and you're not wrong. Like, the money is still cheap as compared to what it will likely be moving forward. I agree that the media does like to jump on a fear story, right? Although I think it's interesting that the media usually follows the narrative from the, you know, politicians or DC and or the Fed, and the Fed is still not telling us that we're in a recession. And so I come back to it's interesting that it seems they're a little decoupled, because normally they're running, you know, lockstep. And so for me, this is it's just something to keep in mind, because I think you're going to go through what seems normal, a balance in the market, before the pendulum swings to the other side hard and then swings back to balanced. So I think that's where we're going. I think the pendulum's swinging. We're going to go through what looks like normal. I think we're going to go through it quickly, and we're going to get to the other side, and we're going to hang out there for a little bit. And I think eventually we'll come back to whatever balanced is, 3 to 6 months supply, all that stuff for real estate as it's concerned. So
it's interesting. You know, the new home builders, they say they have like a 9.5 month supply of homes for sale. But if you look at the homes that are actually finished, it's 25 days supply.
Right.
So they got a long way to go. The supply chains are still a major problem. What's going on in the rest of the world is going to be a problem, continue to be. So, you know.
Well, for me, it comes back to the buyers drive the market. Okay. And if the buyers push the demand, then as long as there's 25 days, you know, or whatever, if that's what the builder's supply is. But when the buyers get the fear, because it's going to happen, the buyers are going to get this recoiled fear, FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the markets, and they're going to step back and they're going to wait just to see what happens. And when they all do that, you're going to have this ripple effect, and that's where that pendulum swings to the other side, and then it has to come back and balance out. That's what's going to happen.
Tony, give us your take. It's hot as hell in Phoenix. It's dry, and now there's more homes available for people to buy. What say you?
Well, there's obviously going to be different effects in different markets. You know, a lot of the things you see on YouTube are very generalized. So if I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and overgeneralize what happens to our country real estate wise, I like to sum it up in a story that's very palatable to the public. It's kind of like driving on the freeway at your speed limit, like everybody else. One person happens to be going a little slow and you didn't realize it, and you go, ah, and you think you're about to hit them, and you wind up actually tapping them. And then we all eventually get going back down the path again. So I like to take the guess that with all the talk we have going on, nobody truly knows what's going to happen, but I suspect that it's going to be like that little bumper tap that we anticipate a major crash. It winds up being a tap. So what I'm trying to say, in other words, is I think we're going to see a little correction, kind of like sort of what Tim was saying. There's going to be a bit of a pullback, and I think everyone's going to look at each other for a while like a bad movie, and then suddenly start moving forward again when they realize it's not quite that bad, because we have gotten used to good times for a long time. And now everybody's obviously, feeding a little bit of fear, which makes sense. But once we realize it isn't that bad, we're going to move forward. That's my prediction.
Okay. So since you said bumper tap, I actually have a little bit of a safety briefing I'd like to go ahead and bring up. Off topic, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Safety briefing moment here. Listen to Sarge. You guys might have saw this in the news. There have been a bunch of car thieves that literally will identify your vehicle, drive up and tap you on the rear end. You make an assumption that you just got into a vehicle accident. You're getting out to go ahead and exchange insurance cards. Next thing you know, you're at gunpoint.
Yep.
So it's very serious right now. Some of the law enforcement in different areas are saying this is on the rise. So make sure you have a safety briefing with your significant others, with your kiddos that are driving, and anything else. Best course of action to do if you do end up getting hit: stay in your vehicle, keep your doors locked, call 911 immediately. So don't be at gunpoint getting robbed by 5 or 6 thugs because they're stealing your vehicle. So
because they can't afford a house and they're going to steal your car and sell it and then go buy a house. God forbid.
Good spin back into real estate, Tony. Good job.
It's always about the market. You know that. Wink, wink. Cough, cough.
Yeah, absolutely. Good deal. Any further takeaways on Phoenix? Do we see this continuing to go in that direction now, especially after the Fed makes another move?
You know, I think we're going to see bubbles, if you will, in different markets. You know, you've got markets in Oregon, Seattle, Colorado, you know, that all got hot during the pandemic because people wanted to move out and have more space. And, you know, not everyone likes to live in the desert. maybe people bought there and lived there for a couple of years and realized it's pretty darn hot. Maybe they want to be somewhere else.
I'm a big fan of Arizona. That's a wonderful state. So Phoenix is hot, though. It really is. So they've got a lot of blacktop that they've been laying throughout the years, a lot of growth and expansion, just absorbing that heat. So we will see. Good deal. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. So, Kirk, I'm going to go into this next program here, how the Fed's high stakes inflation pursuit of or their fight against inflation kind of hits the housing market. It's a little bit long. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to want to watch this. I typically don't bring in clips that are more than 5 minutes or so, but this is a good one. So grab your coffee, watch it, and we're going to roundtable it with everybody.
The COVID-19 pandemic caused chaos in the housing market, with prices skyrocketing, inventories dwindling, and bidding wars reaching epic stakes.
Housing in the burbs is red hot because of the pandemic, but there's so much demand that there's not a lot left to choose from.
It's actually very hard to get a mortgage, even though rates are low. Inflation's a real worry.
Then came record inflation, which drove the price of everything higher.
It's impacting decisions about how they spend their money.
We at the Fed understand the hardship that high inflation is causing.
The U.S. Federal Reserve, though, is waging an intense fight against rising prices, using interest rates as its primary weapon to fight inflation.
Mortgage rates not only surged to the highest level since 2000.
A side effect of raising interest rates, though, is higher mortgage rates.
In 13 years.
What's more, the Fed now owns $2.7 trillion in mortgage bonds, part of its plan to prop up the financial system when COVID first started, and it began selling them in June. So what does the Fed's fight against inflation mean for the red-hot housing market?
What the Federal Reserve is doing right now is they are raising short-term rates. That would be the federal funds rate. This is interbank lending.
The interest rate broadly differs depending on what you're talking about. So your interest rate for government bonds is very different from your interest rate on your mortgage, which is very different from your interest rate for credit cards, which is different from your interest rate on car loans. But what really anchors all of them is the 10-year government bond in the US, that interest rate. And that's the anchor because that is the ultimate in safe haven asset. That really anchors the entire market, and 10-year government bond yield or interest rate is really based on the Fed funds rate, so where the central bank is setting short-term rates.
The Federal Reserve Open Market Committee raising the funds rate by 75 basis points.
The Federal Reserve raised short-term interest rates by 75 basis points on June 15th. And that was a big move.
So when the Fed hikes its policy rate, it affects a whole bunch of other rates in the economy. And so variable rates for mortgages are anchored on short and long-term interest rates. And the short-term rate, which affects the long-term rate, is all set by the Fed. And so if the Fed is raising the policy rate, that means that anybody with a variable mortgage is facing higher interest costs on their mortgage. And so that means as the Fed's tightening and hiking interest rates, they're also making mortgages more expensive. That should cool down the housing market. That is a big part of the point. So mortgage-backed securities are basically a series of mortgages that are on a bank's balance sheet that are sort of bundled and repackaged and sold off.
Mortgage-backed securities are a relatively small part of the Fed's balance sheet. Treasuries are still the lion's share, more than 80%. The Fed's influence over housing through MBS purchases is complicated. It's partly direct. The fact that they're buying bonds means there's a smaller quantity, which has a direct impact on interest rates, but it's mostly psychological. That is, when the Fed announces a significant buying program, the market starts to anticipate, particularly pension funds and insurance companies. These are bond investors who need both very safe assets and very long maturities. So these are natural buyers of mortgage-backed securities, and they immediately start to worry about their ability to get those bonds at decent interest rates in the future. So they step up the pace of their borrowing. And because of that, when the Fed simply comes out and announces a borrowing program, you'll often see decline in mortgage interest rates of 0.5% to a full percent within a couple of months, even before the program begins.
With the Fed now saying it will do an additional $15 billion of purchases of mortgage-backed securities today. That's on top of $32 billion it was already going to do.
When the Fed bought mortgage-backed securities in the financial crisis, it was very different from when they bought them during the pandemic. Although I suspect the logic at the beginning of the pandemic was based on the logic of the housing crisis. During the housing crisis, literally thousands of mortgage lenders went out of business. They were actually highly levered themselves. Many of them had huge exposure to the mortgage market. They lost an enormous amount of money. They had margin calls and they disappeared. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which are absolutely central to the U.S. housing market, this is the primary place where mortgage loans are converted into mortgage-backed securities. They also had tremendous exposure to the mortgage market, and it turns out they had a tremendous amount of leverage as well. They had to be bailed out.
We're continuing the process of significantly reducing the size of our balance sheet.
Fed began to shrink its balance sheet on the 1st of June this year.
So it could cool the housing market. In theory, that's what's supposed to happen. In practice, we don't really have much evidence of that. There was the argument that the real estate market in the US was overheating already long before the Fed started rolling off MBS, mortgage-backed securities, from its balance sheet. And so there was an argument that actually the Fed should prioritize getting rid of mortgage-backed securities over getting rid of government bonds, for example, because the housing market was really overheating, partly because the Fed was such a big player and was creating demand for mortgages.
If the Fed stops buying MBS altogether, I think it should be a relatively small impact as long as fixed income investors are comfortable with the idea that mortgage rates are at their high.
An important thing to remember about the housing market is that housing can bring the economy up, and housing can also contribute to a slower level of growth. When people buy homes, they go out and spend the money elsewhere in the economy. And when housing starts to slow, some of that spending starts to slow.
It is essential that we bring inflation down if we are to have a sustained period of strong labor market conditions that benefit all.
The Fed is fighting inflation in a way that we have not seen since 1981. In the last 45 years, any time recession signals began to flash, if the Fed was hiking rates, they stopped. After a considerable pause, if recession warnings continued to flash, they eased. We have been told repeatedly by Fed officials they're not going to do that this time. In fact, Jay Powell told us that the bigger mistake would not be causing a recession, it would be failing to control inflation.
The worst mistake we could make would be to fail, which it's not an option. We have to restore price stability. We really do. Because everything, it's the bedrock of the economy. If you don't have price stability, the economy is really not going to work.
I think the likelihood of recession, probably before the end of this year, is extremely high. And I think even if we have a recession, the Fed will continue to hike. I cannot imagine under those circumstances that we don't have some kind of correction in the housing market.
All right, there it is. Quite interesting. That was a good overview for everybody, and I think it really kind of brings in some questions. So last night, the newsroom, while we were producing, we were reviewing a article on Yahoo News with Robert Kiyosaki, basically saying, ladies and gentlemen, things are going to get really bad, and he said keep an eye on the bond market, right? So that kind of gave us a good overview of what the Fed is doing or not doing, and a lot of people go to the bonds as a security. So what do you see, Tim? Break this down for us.
Well, first of all, that was an extremely dry video to get to the ultimate point of recession is inevitable. And I was just like, we'll get there, people. But It did lay it out in a very succinct way to say, here's exactly what's going on. And I think that's important. But that being said, what do I see happening? Yes, everything that was outlined in that video and then some. And here's what I point out. Like you brought up Robert Kiyosaki. I mean, there's others out there that are making claims that, hey, something's going on. But you have to understand this, where I come from and my position on all this is a lot of people think the American economy is apart and separate from the rest of the world economy, and that it couldn't be further from the truth. So if you look outside of what's going on in America and look out what's going on in the world and other countries that share the central banking system, there's a lot of freaking problems out there. And all that is going to come back to roost in America. People say, well, America's got the strongest economy. It's the backbone of the yada, yada, this and that. And this is where I also say the backbone needs the rest of the body. And if the rest of the body is dying or failing, then it's going to come back to the core. And so no, that's not pleasant news. This isn't what I want to share with people because I'm excited about it. This is just reality. I would rather be educating people that this is coming, that they be prepared for it so they can take necessary actions and take care of themselves and their families and their loved ones, than them be ignorant to the possibility that this is actually going to be a thing. But just freaking look around you, people. It's happening.
God, that's depressing.
I know. I am sorry. I don't want to be that guy.
It's the music. It's all the music in the background.
But you're absolutely right.
Cue the horror movie music, right?
I know, right? So things are very, very connected globally, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Entirely. I mean, normally, one entity will pull another out of a recession. So if the United States went into a recession, but Europe or the EU, European Union, was very strong, it would pull the United States up because of what Tim's saying. But right now, we see weakness here in the United States. Manufacturing indexes are down. We are in a recession, but there's a nonprofit. I can't remember the name of it, but there's actually a nonprofit that watches this and actually announces the recession. It's not the Federal Reserve Board. So sometime later this year, early Q1 of 2023, that nonprofit will open their mouth and say, hey, we are in a recession. But it's been going back like 6 months. So yeah, I think the rest of the world is not in a position because they're behind us. They haven't started raising interest rates yet to try and keep up with their inflationary issues. So that's a concern.
Well, you have to understand, you got the BRICS nations, which are the nations that are in direct challenge of our economic system, which is the predominant global economic system. But you've also got nations that are trying to exit our system and go into the BRICS nations like Saudi Arabia, Argentina. And when you have countries that are trying to exit a system that's been in place for 70, 80 years and then go to a new, well, it's not a new system, but it's the antithesis of the one we're on, that's a trend-setting action that other nations will go, well, this one's not doing very well, let's go over here. And so all of those factors will come home to play. And so, no, I can't help but look at everything else. Like, to me, the real estate market is usually the driver, right? We look at it as go, well, it drives the markets up and down all the other markets. In this case, I think it's actually the byproduct of everything else. I think it's
the tail of the dog this time.
Yeah, this time.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. This is what I have to say about all this. Moment of silence. Anyways, it is earnings week. Okay, it is earnings week. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday, Walmart went ahead and reported, and they're not looking good. They're seeing a close to 10% drop in some of their future reporting. I know we have some big tech firms yet reporting this week, and the Knights of the Fed Roundtable are meeting today. So I think we're going to come out of the end of this week thinking some different things. So let me ask, Mark, the Fed, we saw the reaction from the actions of the last basis increase. So if they go up again, what say you? What's your speculation on the housing market?
Well, they're like I said earlier, they're doing a really good job of putting the brakes on, and we know what they're going to do. So it's already cooked into the current rate. I mean, Kirk could probably shed more light on that, but it seems like, we're going to announce the GDP figures in September for Q2, and we're going to raise the rates this week, but we've already factored all of that in. So, you know, as far as this affects real estate, it doesn't shock me that nobody's buying. Nobody wants to buy at the peak. You know, nobody wants to buy in, and the big boys are out there borrowing money, stockpiling money. You know, the wealthy are doing that, and the regular guy is just got less and less and less to deal with every day, as far as his expendable income that he can go spend. So there just isn't enough money for the average Joe citizen to go out there and make something happen. And every day we're getting pinched harder.
I saw the gas and fuel prices coming down. How did that end up happening?
Supply and demand. Jake, we talked about that a couple weeks ago. We follow a formula that you watch the price of a barrel WT crude, and as that comes down, multiplied by 20% profit margins, and based on that, we could see that those prices were going to come down. Also, I'm pretty sure our president helped out by going over there and threatening Middle East. I think that probably helped too. The prices
threatening. Yeah, that guy's threatening.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I heard he's draining the reserves, our federal or petroleum reserves. I heard that's happening.
Yeah, why is he going over and asking for oil from other countries when we can do it here? Anybody on that one? Anybody?
We can do it really good here.
Does anybody know? Last I heard, we had like 200 years of oil reserves in this country. I don't know if that number is still accurate or not, but we should look that up.
We should look it up. Tony,
shed a little positive light on this.
What's that?
Tony, shed some positive light on this, please.
Oh, yes. It's going to be, like I said, I think because of the way the world is now, we have to look at how we used to make predictions and how things were affected based on how the world was at the time. Because, I mean, look at the show right now. All this news and all this information that we're pulling up now, and everybody on the internet is pulling from multiple sources. I think there's more tattletaling about what's going on behind the scenes in so many businesses and ways that it makes me think that whatever kind of recession we're going to have, whatever kind of course correction or price correction we're going to have in the real estate market, it may not be as bad as it used to be because we didn't have quick, clear, ease of communication forever until now. So moving forward, like the war in Ukraine, the second it happened, everybody knew. But how long did it take us, 20, 30, 40 years ago to know there was a problem in another country? So this is why I'm relying on the fact that we do have fast, ease of communication available almost everyone, including all these people smarter than me, all those economists and people above them, that we can communicate faster, easier. We can have our finger on the pulse a little bit better. So when we go through what I suspect will be a little bit of a course correction, I don't think it's going to be the proverbial car crash head on. I just think it's going to be more of a fender bender. Everyone's going to go, oh, geez. And then we're going to get used to it and things will start getting better again. Just like when gas was, I remember when gas went from around $1 to $2 a gallon to $3. And I used to joke, well, it's still cheaper than, a cup of Starbucks. Well, now we're at $5 and $6 and we all went, oh, again. And, when it goes down to 5 or 4, we're going to be so happy. And I think that will happen eventually. So my summary is we're going to have a little bit of a car accident. I don't think anyone's going to get hurt because of the ease of information. We're all smarter now. When that 2017 crash happened, there were things going on that a lot of us didn't know, and it all came to light, and we all got smarter moving forward. Hence the last, 10, 12 years of good things happening in real estate. So now we're going to get a little shimmy, and we're going to be okay. So hang on for the turbulence. It won't be that bad. That's what I'm thinking.
Tony used turbulence, car accident, fender bender, shimmy.
Is this
I love
Prius
the car.
endorsement? Is
I love
this a
the
Prius
car
endorsement? Is that what's happening right now?
No, everything's fine. We have the hybrid Toyota van. You're like one of 10,000 people trying to get it. I had to drive 2 hours to Bakersfield. So
There's 10,000 people that want that?
Well, probably more, but they don't have them. Toyota's going to suffer. Mark my words, with that whole, what they call the FU price tag, they bump it up just because the salesman couldn't justify it. But we got ours when they were able to take it away. Now you got to pay blood money to get these hybrids. So trust me, it's worth every penny. Enjoy your trucks.
Jake, I always try and look for the upside and the opportunities and things. So every market has an opportunity. Like, you know, right now the cost of materials, wood in particular, is down 15%. We're about to go into a labor problem here as unemployment climbs. So labor around construction will be, I imagine, a little more competitive going forward here. I really like these 203K loans. You know, we have a high conforming loan limit in this country right now across the board, and you can pick up properties that need some repair work that you want to live in. If you're buying a home to live in, I think it'd be helpful for the real estate agents to really dig into that concept, understand that program.
Very interesting.
I think that Tony makes a good point about complacency. You know, 2 years ago, gas was half the price that it is now, and interest rates were also significantly lower. So when they when Jerry and the boys bumped the price of money up again this week, and then next year or 2 years from now, the rate goes down to 5%, everybody's going to be happy. But, you know, the sensational headlines that the media puts out there for us, that's what sells advertising. To get on there and say, hey, news at 11, everything's great and everything's stable.
Yeah.
Tune
or
in.
It's okay. If everything goes slow down a little and everybody goes, okay, but that doesn't sell newspapers.
Tune in for a boring session, or do you want to watch Tony's session on car crashes and the value of
avoiding them
Prius.
car crashes? My car actually has detection. I could be tweeting on my phone. Not that I would, but if I were and I'm going to hit somebody, my brakes will apply and stop me. Just like with our economy, we're all communicating easier. So to borrow from what Kirk said, when the auto brakes kick in and make us tap our fenders, people who have been preparing, like Tim was saying, people who haven't overspent and bought gold-plated rims on their Mercedes or whatever, who have been conservative for a while, they want to see a bit of a recession because things go on sale. So I got those buyers lined up who are already with 60, 70% down from a home we closed, 3, 4, 5 months ago, and they're just tapping their fingers going, all right, let's see that price come down at all, or have the leverage over the sellers, where sellers were, picking and choosing their offers. Now I have the buyers who have the money. So when we show up, we have, at least for a while, incredible leverage over the sellers. Not every deal, but some markets will have it.
So word of caution here, don't be tweeting in your Prius like Tony.
I don't, for the record. I don't. Hands free.
End of comment.
So I got a question for you, Tony.
Yes.
You're telling me, and I'm asking, the buyers start seeing the prices come down on houses. You think the buyers are savvy enough to go, well, shit, I'm buying right now? Or are they going to keep waiting?
No, I think the buyers who have good agents that are well informed based on the financial situation that they're in, what their portfolio looks like and their capability, and having a reasonable safety net will make better decisions on what they should buy, because I think we're all going to agree that at some point real estate will, go back up. No matter how much it might crash or how little it'll crash, it'll go back up. So having a home, making a purchase when it's affordable and wise for that particular person, it's going to happen. I think it's wrong to overgeneral. I will disagree with you on the overgeneralization. Buyers will sit around and wait. I have 3 of them right now that have their cash ready, and they're going to look for any change or any leverage to get the home they want. All buyers, no. Some, yeah. There's always going to be buying and selling happening no matter how the market goes, even if it's a little. But there's always going to be opportunity. Like Kirk said, it's a matter of your local market, the education of the real estate agent, the awareness and capability and preparation of the buyer. Because if you do a knee-jerk reaction, you're going to have trouble. If you're calm and patient and make a move, you got to make a move eventually. So
then help me understand the math on this. I put a house on the market a couple weekends ago. If I put it on the market 3 months ago, I would have had 50, 60 showings in 2 days, probably about 20, 30 offers. I put on the market 2 weeks ago. I get 3 showings and 3 offers. So I agree with you that not all buyers are going to step down, but if you just run the math on that, that is a majority, and there's a majority that are taking a step back. That's all I'm saying. And so
that's reasonable.
As real estate professionals, we need to be prepared for that. That's all.
That's reasonable too. The buyers, we can't run around all over the United States of America and question everybody. We can just make the best guess we can with a heartfelt sincerity of what we think is going to happen. I'm in agreement of what you just reiterated back is there's going to be buyers who are going to wait. I have a buyer, I won't say who and describe them, but I have a solid buyer from 3 years ago. I mean, plenty of cash and a ridiculous amount. And she just, wasn't really sure. She listened to family members who are not really in the business. And I would honestly predict she probably lost out on hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity and value and still doesn't own a home. So you have somebody super educated, plenty of cash, lots of cash, and just didn't make a good decision because a few family members said, let's just wait a few years. And she still has nothing. But I got someone who just closed 2 weeks ago. They got a nice chunk of cash. They want a really nice home, and they can go in there with some leverage. So it's going to be on a person by person basis, just like a disease doesn't affect everybody the same way.
Yeah, my question there, Tim, was those 3 offers that you got, were they qualified offers? And
were they
how
great?
long did it take to get them? How long was the price of the property listed?
No, we still got them in the same weekend. They were all qualified. We took it cash. All of them were over. So to give you like the data on it, I listed the house slightly under what the average square foot price had been, but I also had recognized that the average over offer was about 6 to 7% over list. So we came in under the average square foot price, and I prepped them for, hey, we may get an over offer, but it's probably not going to be the 6 to 7%. We end up getting about 3% over list. We got a cash offer. They came back. The first one, they were like, we just want $5,000 off the top after option period. And my sellers were like, nope, because they weren't even justifying it. They weren't even showing evidence as to why they wanted it. They just wanted it. So we kicked them to the curb. And then we went back to the second offer, which was actually a stronger offer. It was a more cash in pocket offer, but not cash deal. And because they were kind of worried about financing, the sellers are. So that's the other thing that sellers are going, hey, look, I know what's going on in the market, so I want to make sure this deal closes. So we went back to the second one. They came in, and it was more cash in pocket. They went through option period, and they asked for $2,000 in seller contribution, which the sellers were like, if you can show me the evidence, we'll talk about it. So they showed the evidence. Sellers were like, great. But that's the first time in a few years that I've gotten to be or a part of an actual negotiation that required the word no. You know what I'm saying? Because normally people weren't even asking. So, I mean, for me, like, it is more fun to be in business when you actually are playing a role versus just filling in lines. However, it gets very, very tricky because you're trying to predict the markets and you're trying to educate on the front end so that you're making the best, recommendations for your client. And so I'm glad that I was able to get them to come in slightly under and still get them more than what they expected, but not as much as what the average over was in the neighborhood. So in the end, they still got their house that they're buying. This house is still going to close. Everybody wins, and they get to exit before, things maybe get weirder as we move forward.
Those other offers out there, those other homes that were higher priced, how long were they sat on the market? Did they have problems in escrow? Were the sellers stressed out because there were problems to handle because, maybe some agents are just pushing paper, maybe the negotiations weren't very good. So I like what you did. That's my favorite go-to tactic. Not that it's default, but my go-to is price a little bit under so that more people look at your property to see what's up than the people who are overcharging. Because again, consumers are well informed, and everyone's pretty much well informed compared to 20 years ago. And no doubt they looked at that house you're talking about saying, wow, these are all overpriced except this one. Let's go see it. So they're more inclined to try to get that house and get it just under everybody else who's probably freaking out.
But Tim had 3, right?
It takes one. How many offers do you need that's good?
Well, that was my point, Tony.
One good offer.
You only need one buyer, and as long as you're selling it for 3% over list, we don't have a collapse in the real estate markets.
No, we have a shift that is well underway.
Okay.
That's all. We're not collapsed. I'm not trying to push that narrative right now.
Right.
We have a shift that is well underway that has absolutely everything to do with outside outlier issues that are not market specific, not real estate market specific, that are affecting these buyers. That's what's going on.
Yeah, that was
people
a prime
they have emotions.
Prime example of Austin's shift in the market. property only sells over 3% over ask now.
Yeah.
Like Tony says, it's local. It's your area. We're seeing here that doesn't happen anymore. And we trail certain other markets. San Francisco, things happen up there before they happen here. Sacramento, still on fire. Southern California, smell and brake dust, no 3% over. We're seeing property price reductions and people offering under ask, not over. So it's just interesting that the mainstream media, one of the clips we have coming up here is telling us how Austin and Phoenix and all these places are horrible. You know, the prices are going down. Tony, the mathematician, the scientist, says going down from what? Increasing at 50% a year down to only increasing 10% a year. Okay, that's a decline.
Exactly. And like in Irvine, California, if a house was $1 million, well, good luck finding something that cheap. But at $1 million, and if they were asking 1.5, 1.7, 1.8, and oh no, we're getting offers at only 1.1, well, maybe it's the buyers making the offers that are now actually fair, and all those overpriced homes are now starting to cool down because slowly sellers should come to the realization of, oh darn, those overinflated times are over. And a good real estate agent would say, it kind of is. So it's not that we're getting underpriced offers. It's we're probably getting offers that are more appropriate. Before they had to, people had to throw money, good money after bad. Now the buyers are starting to get some power saying, we're going to probably give you what's about fair. What do you think? And
I'm going to ring the bell on round one on this Fed fight, because literally this is the reaction from the Fed's previous adjustment. And today they're getting ready to go and break us into round two. So we're going to see what happens on the shake of the dog there. So we will see. But I totally agree with you, Mark, as well, when you were talking about the attitude of pricing, right, from a consumer standpoint. I know our president is pushing his good job in reducing the gas prices, because he knows that most people will say, oh my gosh, it's going down and this feels good. But no, it doesn't. It's still not good. All right. That's my whisper into the microphone moment today. There you go. So let's go ahead and jump into what Redfin's CEO has to go ahead and say. He says it's going to be a bumpy landing. Check it out, ladies and gentlemen.
Glenn, give me your take. What does a balanced market look like? Should it be seen as a positive?
Well, at least for home buyers it is. In America, we worry about the price of gas and bread and everything except housing. When home prices go down, it's a calamity. But this will let more people own a home. Rents have been going through the roof. Home prices have been rising at unsustainable levels. I think a return to normalcy, where we have 3 to 6 months of housing supply, is actually a good thing.
And are we back to that normalcy, or are we getting close?
We are, but it's just such a wild ride to get there. So you've got 15 to 25% of the homes under contract being canceled in the past month. 62% of Boise homes have dropped their price. More than half have done so in Salt Lake City and Denver. So I don't think it's going to be a smooth landing. It's going to be a very bumpy landing.
Yeah, well, you mentioned 3 very hot or previously very hot markets, I would assume, where price appreciation over the last 2 years has been substantial. Is that your expectation in other markets? I mean, is it, to be expected across the board that, and we're looking at them now, that some of these incredibly hot places are simply cooling off, but are ending at a far higher level than they were even a year ago?
Absolutely. So the markets that were the hottest have the furthest to fall. If you look at Austin, Texas, I think the compound annual price growth rate is negative 42%. That's extrapolating from just 1 month, so it gives you a wild number. I don't actually expect home prices to fall that much, but it's still a doozy to see that much loss in 1 month. So for people who are used to the housing market being really stable, a good place to put your money, this is a real bumpy ride. Mostly we see this kind of volatility in the stock market, even in the bond market, but not in the housing market. And some of that's attributable to the fact that investors have become so active in the market. It used to be that investors were 1/10 of the home sales. Now we're up to 1 in 5. And that activity is falling fast. We've never seen a faster rate of decline in investor activity since Redfin's begun tracking it.
Yeah, that's a really important point. I want to ask you about your business at Redfin. About a month ago, you announced layoffs, about an 8% cut, noting at the time that you didn't have enough work for agents and support staff given the current market environment. Do you think that the size of your employee base is right at this time, given all these factors, or are you considering future downsizing?
No. We made a cut based on the data we had about where the market was going, and since then the market has performed as we expected. It got a little bit worse in the last 2 or 3 weeks of June. It got a little bit better coming out of the 4th of July holiday. Some home buyers are responding to the lower prices. And then also we've just had a really effective campaign reminding people that we sell homes for a 1% fee and sell them faster and for more money.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.
You're welcome, Shepard. You're welcome, Shepard. I always love keeping Shepard in at the end there. So he likes thanking us all for watching his programs. So 1 out of 5 buyers in the market over the last 24 months or so has been investors. We've covered this many times, how Wall Street dollars are coming in and buying inventory like crazy, right? It was even on 60 Minutes. But they are fast falling out of the market. And I know we spoke about this when those investors stop buying, that inventory levels are going to start going up and they're going to start trying to sell too. They were holding these homes almost vacant hostage in many states across the U.S. There was reports of 1.6 million homes that were investor owned and vacant sitting in the state of Florida, which is substantial. So I think it's been uncovered a little bit, or undercovered, both of those. And I think we're going to start seeing it, especially after Jerome makes another adjustment, because they're going to put their money into maybe bonds, things that are more secure. So it's quite interesting. So question for Mr. Kirk on this one. By the way, I think somebody better go ahead and throw that CEO a life raft real quick.
Oh boy, you're reading my mind.
Yeah, somebody better throw him a life raft. He had a very awesome marketing program that they just launched, reminding people that they buy and sell homes. All right, good luck with that. 4 years ago, roughly, the median home price in the United States of America was in the mid-2s, right? And now the median price of a home in the United States of America is in the mid-4s, mid to upper 4s. So when he says that inventory coming back on the market is a good opportunity for people to buy, I say that it's a tough reach for a lot of people that are entering the market to go ahead and get in at a mid 400 price point. What say you, Kirk?
You know, it's
that was a deep breath.
Yeah, I gotta think of that deep breath,
ladies and gentlemen.
We gotta think it through. You know, as we have been doing this program and this has been going on for months and months, we've been having this conversation. It occurs to me that what we're really trying to do here is simplify an incredibly complex problem. Tim alluded to it earlier, even directly. There's external forces that impact the housing market. There's internal forces in the housing market that impact the housing market. There's buyer sentiment. There's down payment. You know, there's so many pieces and parts that go into it. But I think we have to look at it at the bottom line level. Owning a piece of real estate is always a good idea in the long run. And you just have to be willing to stay in your home long enough. And that's happening. It used to be people stayed in their homes about 7 years. Now we're up to about 13 years. That has shifted over the last 25 years that I've been in the business. So, you know, we see this regularly. It's hard for me to jump on this, you know, everything is terrible situation. I know rents are up, investors are buying product and holding on to it. But having run a large servicing company, there's a lot of legal issues behind why those banks may be holding that product. You know, so many more complex issues than we would be able to get into on this show. So the fact that they're holding a lot of inventory is not good, but maybe they're hamstrung in some ways as well that we don't know about. Just like nobody knew that AIG was, you know, over leveraged by 2,000% in 2008, right? They didn't announce that to the world. So
they were very, very over
after the fact.
They were very, very over leveraged back then.
It was insane what they were doing. But again, it was based on government mandate. the government in the late 90s said everyone should own a home, so figure it out. And then they went and they figured out pay option arm loans, which, by the way, everyone was, subprime loans, pay option arm loans are evil. They're inanimate objects. They don't do anything. It's the homeowners that do something. And so the better, I'll just always keep harping on it, get better advisors. Get real about what you can do and where you want to go in the future, and be willing to take steps to success instead of trying to go all in on one hand of poker, so to speak.
Kirk, will you be my advisor?
I will be your advisor, Jake.
I need a good advisor.
You got it.
I choose you, Kirk Jaffe. Tony Barbarino.
Yo, how you doing?
All right, give us some of the candy cane land shoots and ladder stuff happening down there in Southern California.
Oh man, I tell you, average price 400 grand in this country. Yeah, not around here, pal. Not to get old Bruce Willis on it, but again, it's going to be local. Using Irvine as one of many possible examples about external factors. To borrow what Tim was saying, that is true, and I think that's something a lot of people know about but don't really apply it on their guesstimations. Irvine being considered by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. Not that I know anything about that, but they consider this, to be one of the, or if not the safest city in America. Periodically, we have the Irvine company who pretty much owns Irvine overall, and it's a well-planned, well-funded community with an incredible school system. So I'm saying all that not because I live here, but to bring up a point that, even if the economy, we have an adjustment that's, let's say it's horrible, there are still people, not everyone, who will want to come here, who know about this town and the beloved school system and its beautiful planned manicured community, who, when the house is $900,000, well, let's say a condo, $900,000, and instead of getting $950,000, they might get $910,000, because there are people who will pay, who can pay, because not everybody has a ton of money. There are people that are going to go to Santa Ana for $300,000. There are people that still want to come here. So there's going to be emotional factors. There's going to be desires and needs. There's going to be fears. So it's going to be a case-by-case basis during this adjustment. When things calm down later, maybe that'll change. But I am in full support of the effects are going to be local. There are some people who have their money that when the economy adjusts a little bit on the houses, they just want to get in that house because they really want their kids in that school. And some people who can afford it are going to take the hit. It doesn't mean everybody's not going to buy. It doesn't mean everyone's going to trip over each other to buy. There's still going to be deals. So people like Kirk and Tim and myself and you, Jake, who don't do deals just to make a buck, but we do deals because we care about the responsibility and have the thoughtfulness to guide our clients into the safest possible path we're aware of. And I think those are the people that are going to do well, the customers. The people who have people that just want to make a buck, some of them are going to drown. So the people on this show are good people. And I'm not saying we're perfect, but in summary, to pat ourselves in the back, if more people in the business of real estate and finance were careful and not just chasing a buck, because some are, sorry, it's true, but a lot of them do care. So I tell the consumers watching the show, be mindful of who you're talking to when it comes to money. Like with Kirk and Tim, you can always talk to them. And if you're buying real estate, find an agent that's patient and educated in their community. And I think that's going to be the safer path while things get a bit of a shakeup.
Tony, I'll only use you as my real estate agent if you can answer this next question accurately.
Sure. The answer is 2.73.
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie, yes or no?
Yes, it is.
All right, good deal. Mr. Mark Buhler, what say you, sir?
Well, I've got to agree with Mr. Glenn Kelman that this is definitely going to be a bumpy ride. I don't think he's breaking any files on that one, and I'm sure that he's got the numbers to support it. Although, as we saw, he's saying that Austin's, based on this limited amount of data, is declining at 42%. I'd be very careful about Redfin and Zillow. I am not a big fan of either one of them. Their algorithms have led them down the path of destruction. Zillow lost $800 million with their home buying program, and if Redfin is following in their path,
oh Jesus Christ, Redfin, Jesus, we're bringing those people up again. They're not dead, Mark. I swear to God, man. Just oh wait, this thing is live. Oh, hello, Redfin and Zillow.
Oh, Jesus.
And I know that a savvy realtor like Tony is really thrilled about the 1% agents out there. You know, I got to agree with one part of his little clip there. Yes, the landing will be bumpy.
Do you agree that somebody should throw him a life raft?
Well, did you see what happened to the stock from $60 to $9? I don't know how
Yep.
much of that he owns, but if he could afford a life raft, he should get one.
Oh, there it is. Straight from the gut, right at it. So, Mark, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Yes or no?
Well, according to Tony, I'd say yes. I actually don't believe I've seen it.
Whoa, that's a new one. So, ladies and gentlemen that are watching, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Yes or no? Put it in the comments below. Tim, break it down for us. You're the Duke of the Dollar, and I know you have a lot to say. What say you?
Well, I'm going to pose some questions here. And you said the average home price was what again?
$450.
Mid fours.
And it was, what was it 4 years ago?
Mid to upper twos.
Has the income for the average American doubled in that same amount of time?
Negative, Ghost Rider.
Do you think that would
Pattern is full.
affect how this thing plays out moving forward, especially with all the external factors, right? So just things to think about. These are the questions I ponder. Here's another question that I ponder. If investors make up 1 out of 5 home purchases, and that number has gone up from 1 in 10 in apparently the same last 4 years or 5 years or whatever, I would theorize that probably the reason that's the case is because you've got a lot of first time new to it real estate investing investors out there, probably, you know, trying to take family money or savings or retirement or whatever to try and build themselves a little financial nest egg through real estate because they just saw the market going on fire. And so here's the really interesting thing about hot markets. It's the least educated, the last ones into the market that get burned first. Okay. So I theorize that a lot of these new investors that bought high are going to either have to hold extremely long term, and maybe they're fine doing that, but maybe they weren't prepared for it. So you're going to have some people that aren't ready for what the shift in this market's going to be. Because if you look at new investors to any market, and even crypto, it doesn't matter whether it's crypto or stock market or whatever, they're trying to buy on the way up. They end up catching it on the way down. Okay. Yeah. And so you're going to have that along with, like you said, the big conglomerates out there that own swaths of cities and neighborhoods and all that. And what happens if they decide to dump into the market their holdings? What happens then to the guy that was just trying to make a, you know, 2 to 5 year turn on his money on a rental property? So these are the questions I ask. Not that
Zillow did a really good job. They bought high and sold low. That's smart, right?
There you go. If Zillow can do it, so can you. That's
this is comforting. Zillow says I should buy high and sell low. That's really good.
Oh man. Anyway,
all right.
So
all
yeah,
right.
no, that's where I'm at.
All right, 10-4. Well, let's go ahead and get into our final segment here with Captain Kirk Jaffe and Mr. Mark Buhler. It is the segment of mortgage and appraiser news. So, Mr. Kirk, why don't you go ahead and kick it off? What say you? What's happening this week?
Yeah, this week mortgage rates are stable at around 5.5 to 5.7%. Expect to pay a point. And remember, points are prepaid interest, so those are tax deductible if you need them. If you're a W-2 employee, especially, that can be helpful on your next tax bill. You want to check into that with your CPA. And you know, the biggest advice I can give this week and even going forward into the immediate future is mortgage companies are deleveraging their employee base. So it's going to be harder than ever to get loans done. Not harder than ever, but certainly harder than it has been in the last 3 or 4 years, despite the pandemics and everything else, because we're just short staffed. So if you're a real estate agent, do your best to educate your buyers and sellers. Don't insist on those 7-day underwritings. Don't insist on 3-day appraisal turn times, because there just aren't enough people around to package and process the paperwork right now. So you make an easier transaction for everybody if you set a reasonable expectation. Obviously, close faster if you can, but set an expectation so people don't have to be stressed out throughout your transaction.
Yep. 10-4. Good deal. Mr. Mark, what say you? Give us some appraiser news.
Inventory's up, demand waning, affordability also becoming an issue in my market, and I assume nationally. Appraisers, there's plenty of them out there, Kirk. The mortgage appraisers are now on the golf course, in the water, surfing, looking for deals. Mortgage volume and mortgage originations are down. Smart people are jumping in now before it gets any worse. Just listen to the news. You can hear all the gory details, and I just laugh at all of these headlines and these emails and these things that I get and these predictions about the future. And Nostradamus, his watch broke and it was still right twice a day. So keep on predicting. Eventually you're going to be correct.
That's good. That's good advice, Mark. Oh my gosh. All right, Kirk, you've got something to share with everybody here.
Well, I'm just going through to let people see what's going on. The Case-Shiller report came out this week, today actually, for the month of May. So this is a trailing number, remember. But we're on pace for a 20.6%. We've dropped down to 19.7% annual appreciation. Let's assume that they raise interest rates again, that mortgage rates go up. I remember I've been saying they're going to land somewhere around 6.5% when they top out at the height. We may have already seen that, but I think we still may have a little more of that going into the first quarter of 2023. So right now we're enjoying this dip in mortgage rates, so it's a good time to capture a mortgage if you can. But here are your hot markets: Miami, Tampa, Austin wasn't listed there. So that was kind of interesting. I guess that's what we've been hearing, right? That their appreciation is dropping quickly, although still will be positive. And the FHFA housing price index, a little bit less at 18.3%. So I think, again, for this year, we're looking at 12% appreciation, 10 to 12% appreciation as the year closes out. And going into next year and beyond, over the next 3 to 5 years, we're expecting another 15% combined over that period. So keep that in mind when you're out looking for homes and whether or not you're thinking about, is this a good time to buy? It's stability for your family and, being able to enjoy the space that you're living in.
And
now there's a ray of sunshine. How about that, people?
Well, and this report too is before Jerome and the Knights of the Roundtable make an adjustment.
Correct. This report will, again, it's a complicated series of scenarios, but the Federal Reserve doesn't directly impact housing. So supply and demand does. And obviously, if they're raising short-term rates, that's going to eventually lead to long-term rates. That can slow down housing. But I think we've already seen it. I think we've already seen the top, meaning we got to about 6.25%, 6.5%. If you're using an alternative mortgage, a non-conventional mortgage, you could be as high as 7.5% right now. So I think that, as we said earlier, a lot of this inflated mortgage cost is already kind of baking into the system. I don't know that if the Federal Reserve raises rates, that's really going to impact mortgage rates more than what we've already adjusted to.
Okay. All right. Any final takeaways, Mark?
Our friend Paul in North Carolina said, price it for what it's worth, not what you think you might get.
Yeah, 10-4. Good deal. Mark, how can people get in touch with you for all things appraisal in the United States?
A conch shell works. And also email does too. I'm mark@cmpappraisal.com. But since appraisals are so slow, the conch shell would probably reach me first since I'm going to be laying on the beach.
Oh my God. All right. Well, pick up your magic conch shell and call Mark Buhler. And he's a very cool guy. You guys got to hang out with him. Kirk, how can people get in touch with you?
You always find me on my website, kirkjaffe.com, or 818-469-2189 is my direct cell phone number. Happy to help you.
Outstanding. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate you guys. So good deal. Mr. Tim Parnell, what say you on the Mortgage and Appraiser report?
Yeah. I think I don't know. I'm holding my breath. I don't. It doesn't please me. I know we've had this conversation multiple times. It doesn't please me to be one that comes on here and is like, yes, but, and however, I also have to be in the business of educating people so they can make the best informed decision for themselves, whether that's in real estate or whether that's in my business of kind of protecting people from the financial, uncertainties. And so for me on this one, I'm going to hold my breath. I think reports tend to be a little shielded sometimes, if that makes sense. I'm guarding my words there. I think the real reports will come out in time, through how we feel this market plays out. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
How can people get in touch with you, Mr. Tim, at Patriot Wealth Nation?
Yeah, absolutely. You can contact me directly at my email, tim@patriotwealthnation.com.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Tony, I saved you and Mr. McQuackers for the very end of the show.
Oh, great.
What say you two? What say you two? Yeah, I just said
it's my
Where
turn. Get out. That's enough. He's actually punching the calculator right now because he listens to Tim too closely. I think his bald head looks like an egg and he wants to sit on it. But that being said, he should get dukeofthedollar.com, hint, hint. That being said, you know what, folks? It is going to be a bumpy ride. Things are going to happen locally. I would suggest to anyone in the world watching the show, try to look at more of the information local to you. There are global factors, there are regional factors, national factors, local factors, and emotional ones too. It's probably a little more healthy to do two things. Look at your local market where you want to buy or invest and find an accountant or a lender like Kirk, for example, or talk to a financial guy like Tim, somebody that you feel you can connect with that seems to be the voice of reason. You got to take a shot. And of course, a real estate agent, not just me, but anybody who's around you, like Paul Agnostopoulos, my Mr. Rogers of real estate in North Carolina there, who's in our show off to the side. Find somebody that you feel that you can trust. There's no way to really know what's in the heart of people, heart and minds, but you got to start communicating. I would say don't sit on the sidelines, because sitting on the side and doing nothing is probably more damaging to your future. And like, Tim brought up a good point. The people who get in last are usually the first burned. So you want to talk to people like Tim or Kirk or your local accountant or your real estate agent, and really try to decide with as much information as you can to make a good, careful decision. But you need to make a decision nonetheless. Taking no action feels safe, but there are opportunities out there, because man, every time things go to hell to any degree, people who've been prepared, it's like going to Walmart with 80% off. They're buying stuff up, and then the market goes back to normal, and everybody wonders how the rich got rich sometimes. This might be one of those times. So this is what we're all here to do. Jake, Tim, Kirk, Paul, everybody on our show, we're really trying to help people out. So in my community, it is different than the community that's 5 miles away. So nobody really knows. We only have suspicions. We have multiple points of data, and it could be disifying trying to get yourself oriented. So feel free to reach out to maybe anybody on the show or anybody you trust. Make a patient decision, but make a decision and just step forward carefully. It's not like 5 months ago where people were trampling over each other. Now we're all walking more cautiously, and some people are choosing not to walk at all. So they might wind up getting burned later instead of looking for opportunities now. So look for opportunities. Don't be so fixated on the proverbial car crash I'm talking about today, but focus on where you're driving, because if you're staring at the car crashes, you're not going to see the road in front of you, and that road is your path of your future, so to speak. So you know what? Reach out to one of us or reach out to somebody, but you got to have a plan.
Tony, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, they can either go to my website, Tony Barbarino, TonyBabarino.com, or they can always call or text or messenger me at 949-633-6741.
Outstanding. Thank you, Mr. Tony. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap up Real Estate America's Newsroom. We stream every Tuesday and Thursday at high noon Eastern, 0900 Pacific. We urge you to invite your friends and grab your favorite beverage. We're always breaking down the mainstream news. So my little takeaway here, folks, is buckle up a little bit, right? Maybe a little bit tighter. Keep an eye on your money. And as my good friend Paul Anastopoulos loves to say, 2022, no breaks. So take action in your life. We're going to check in real quick with our show sponsor at Freedom Move USA. If you are planning on making a move and your real estate agent is not certified with them, the chances of you spending an additional $10,000 to $25,000 on your move is imminent. So make a decision. Get a Freedom Move USA certified agent before you plan on listing your home for sale or purchasing one, so that your move is taken care of. That money goes a long way. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we ask you, if you like what we're doing, hit the like button. If you're over there on the tube of you, smash the bell. Throw in some comments. Tell your friends about us. We can't do this without you, and we do this for you. So have a blessed rest of your day, ladies and gentlemen, and we will see you. Wait a sec. What is going on here?
Jake, baby, how you doing? What a great show, folks. Oh, my God. Where's Kirk? I miss him.
You like McQuackers? You liked what we did here?
Let me tell you something, Jake. Oh, my God. I was losing feathers. I was freaking out. I canceled all my dates and plans just to watch the show because I know you are the voice of reason, the Sarge, the man watching out for our country. Sarge 2024. Yes.
I've got a question for you, McQuackers.
Yes.
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Yes or no?
Jesus, God Almighty! You know it's a everyday movie. It's required watching every night before bed with a cigar and a shot of whiskey, if you're of age, of course. It's a daily movie. It's an American show. It just happens to happen at Christmas time.
All right. Final question. Do you know how to use a conch shell? Because I got to call Mark Buhler, and I don't think I've ever used one before.
Oh, let me tell you, I get the Mark on speed dial. You know, if I need to something, off the books, he's very well connected, man. You have no idea.
All right. Thank you, McQuackers. We
You're
appreciate
welcome, Jake.
you.
Jake,
All right.
I love you, baby. Have a good day.
We love you too. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, there was that. And yes, that happened. So put a smile on your face, ladies and gentlemen. We are here today, and I want to see you guys tomorrow. Have a blessed rest of your day. Until next time.